Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for the late start on my personal page again. For some reason, as I described last week, Facebook has decided that I cannot do Facebook Lives from my business account because I don't have an established presence. What constitutes an established presence? Can anyone help me? I have no idea. See if anyone knows what. Nah, I won't put it as a poll. So anyways, hope everyone's having a great day. Thanks for those who are join me as we go. No one's on here at the moment, but hopefully some will join. Just want to start out by saying, if you are interested in supporting the local Challenger Elementary School, you can buy one of these mugs. They are doing an effort because the referendums have passed the last few years, and they can't afford to keep all the teachers that they want to afford, which is going to cause larger class sizes if they lose teachers. They're trying to raise $70,000+ to fund their own teacher to decrease the class size increases that may or will happen in the coming year. So what they're doing is they are selling, it's really cool actually, they are buying and then printing and then selling the mugs all within the 5th grade classes. So it's giving the 5th grade students a really great opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship and earning for what you want rather than just, hoping to get it all the time. So I think it's a really cool cause. And I know I'm really proud that Rotary has donated $5,000 towards the cause to help them jumpstart and buy some mugs to resell and generate profits from. So I'm really excited about that and hope there will be a lot of support. So with that, I just want to remind everyone that weekly Money Not Math coffee talks are an informal way for me to have conversations and answer questions with people, even if they are not my clients, for free. You are welcome to join the Facebook Live where we're at right now, or stop by my office for free coffee. I'm just downtown in the same building as Sarah Jane Boutique and across from Styles by Amy. There is no pressure to work with me or become my client by stopping by in person or online. It is my mission to provide the highest quality advice and service possible to my clients. Therefore, I limit myself to only having 100 or less active clients at all times that I have a fiduciary responsibility to. Even though I limit myself to only working with 100 clients at any given time, it is still important to me to provide as much value as I can to as many good people as possible, which is why these conversations are so important to me. Disclaimer, this content is not legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult a qualified professional regarding your personal situation. And this is live, so I may make a mistake from time to time, even though, of course, I'll do my best not to. I look forward to some great conversations, whether it's today or in the future. And no matter what, I hope you have a wonderful day. With that, are there any questions to start? Please put them in the comments section now or at any time during this video. I have 1 hour set aside on my calendar to answer questions, but if there are not enough to take up an hour, I'll probably aim to wrap this up around 30 minutes. So if we have questions, I'd love to spend the whole hour just answering them. If we don't, then I will just cover some content that hopefully is valuable for you regarding retirement planning and financial planning. And if hopefully that either prompts questions or provides value, and then we will go from there. So like I said, I would much rather answer questions than just read at you. But if it takes if it takes me reading retirement planning content to prompt questions, I'll do that. Or like I said, I will maybe I didn't say this, but I will download this video and distribute it across my other platforms as well if you'd like to watch it at a later time. And you can always reach out to me via email, messenger, text, whatever it might be, with questions. Keep in mind, I can't legally give you advice through text. It has to be over the phone or via email or in person. But I always love hearing from people, whether they are my clients or not, because it's important to me to provide value to other people. Otherwise, what are we doing here, right? So with that, I don't see anyone on yet or any questions. So I'm just going to jump into an article from dimensional.com. And it's written by David Booth, founder and chairman of Dimensional, which is a company that we utilize to build a lot of our custom portfolios for our clients. And the title of the article is What I See When I Watch Basketball. All right. And David says, it's my favorite time of year again, March Madness. We're now into April, but the tournament's still going, I believe. Right? I should probably know that. I'm not much of a basketball guy. But the NCAA competition held each spring to determine the national champions of college basketball. I got to look this up. I'm curious. Is the NCAA tournament's going on? NCAA basketball tournament. Yes, it is still, I believe, still going. Who's left? I'm not going to get into that. Someone can comment and let me know how it's going. But there's definitely still games going on. So I can see that there's 4 games, or there's games still. Or no, maybe there's not. No, the championship was Cedarville. I must be looking at the wrong thing. Is this men's or women's? Men's basketball national championship. Says the championship game was at 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 23rd. Okay, so apparently I'm just way behind. Point being, national championship basketball. I apologize for the lateness of this. Clearly, I'm not a basketball person. But anyways, he says, many fans look forward to predicting who's going to win the whole thing. What's become known as bracketology, but not me. In my mind, March Madness is captivating because it's completely unpredictable. What I love is witnessing an arena full of athletes trying their absolute hardest, working together to achieve a common goal. Watching college basketball provides clear evidence that we, as human beings, can do so much more together than we're capable of on our own. Personal plug, I think a lot of people are a lot more financially successful with a team rather than trying to do everything on their own. Just like every professional golfers, Masters Week, I'm a huge Masters fan and golf fan. There's not a single professional golfer on tour that I'm aware of that does not have a caddy or that does not have a swing coach. Even though they might be the best golfers in the world, they still have a team of people to help them achieve their goals. And that's where we come in as financial advisors. So even though you're probably really, really, really smart, and you might even be way smarter than me, you might even know more about money than I do, it's still valuable to have a team to remove the emotional effect and bounce ideas off of, okay? Getting back to the article. In this way, it reminds me of the human ingenuity that drives the stock market. The value of the stock market grows every year because of the power of people to solve problems in more and more inventive ways. In both basketball and markets, we don't know who is going to win, but we know someone is going to win, and that win will carry us all forward in some way. What I'm interested in seeing all these talented, dedicated people deal with uncertainty. How do they come together to solve problems? What works and what doesn't? What do they learn in the process? Only one team can win each game, but every single member of both teams is doing the absolute best they can do. And that's my definition of winning in basketball, investing, and the rest of life too. So typically, his name is David, I watch a game once. And if it's a team I'm really interested in, I'll go back the next day and watch it again. Many of my friends are amazed that I'm willing to watch a basketball game when I already know the score. I value process so much that knowing the result doesn't diminish the experience. How do you guys feel about that? All right, I see there's one person on here. Do you rewatch sports even if you know the outcome? I don't. It's one thing about sports that I love is the uncertainty and unknowing. If I know the outcome, I almost never will rewatch it, other than like the movie Miracle. Any opinions out there? Seeing none, I'll continue on with the article. This time, I'm trying to figure out the science of how the game was played to see what was skill and what was luck. Were both teams performing at a high caliber, or was one team better prepared or better coached than the other? That's what I'm looking for. I want to learn from the experience, just like the players and coaches do. This is a lot like what I've done over the years of my career in investment management. When we talk about empirical research in the science of finance, we mean studying the way stocks have performed over the course of the past 100 years to understand more about how the stock market works. We watch the game over and over and over again. Because I'm getting so much more from the game than its outcome, I'm not devastated when my team loses, though I am thrilled when my team wins. I understand that individual games and tournaments are just steps along a team's journey. Most long-term fans feel the same way I do. Team allegiance gets passed down through generations, and fans do not abandon their teams after a loss. They stick with them. Kind of like how long-term investors understand the market will deliver short-term ups and downs, but provide a worthwhile reward in the long run to those who stick around. All right, so I think that's an extremely important point that were made there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I will include the link here in the chat. If you aren't able to access it, I can download and send it to you. And please, I see there's someone jumped on here. If you have any questions retirement planning related or regarding that article, please pop them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, if I don't see any, I will pull up another article that covers retirement planning and hopefully provide more value. All right, seeing no questions, I'm going to pull up another article here. So it says where international diversification works and where it falls short. And this is written by Christine Benz on Morningstar.com. She says recent diversification and performance benefits of non-U.S. stocks have been muted, but that trend may not persist. So this is important for those of you who get in the weeds when it comes to financial advising and investing, because so many people get so caught up with the U.S. market, they forget there's a whole world out there of companies that are trying to make profits. And those profits reward those who own stocks because they own part of those companies, right? So I'm not going to read this entire article. It looks like it's a little lengthy. No, it's not terrible, but I'm just going to highlight the main points. All right. So Christine Benz, she says, adding international stock exposure is one of the first steps toward a diversified portfolio. And this is also something important because I know I've reviewed some people's portfolios that they own the S&P 500, which is the top 500 largest companies in the U.S. market that are publicly traded. They own the Dow Jones, which is like the top 30. And then they own the NASDAQ, which is like the technology market. So they think they're diversified, but really they just have a ton of overlap in the same space. Essentially, they just tripled down on some of the largest 30 companies in the country. They aren't actually that diversified. So it's really important to understand how not just how much money you're saving, which is the most important, but how your money's invested. Because it's quite possible you're losing a lot of returns or growth in the long term by just simply not paying a little bit of attention to how you're actually investing your money. I've seen people who are investing in their 401k. Just recently, we rolled over a couple $100,000 and it was sitting in cash. Over a long period of time, that's going to lose a lot of growth potential to not being in the equities, right? Or maybe they're overexposed in bonds. So they're just you can lose a lot of money or growth potential by just not paying a little bit of attention on where and how your money's invested. All right, so coming back to the article, even minimalist, and I'll put it in the link in the comments here in this case you'd like to follow along or read it on your own at a later date. I see more people are jumping in here, so I just want to remind you, if you have questions regarding these articles or retirement planning, please put them in the comments. I'd much rather answer your questions than read these articles. So with that, even minimalist investors usually carve out a portion of their portfolios for non-United States stocks as a supplement to domestic stocks and bonds. At this point, however, even committed globalists have to acknowledge that adding non-United States equities has detracted from the returns of the United States-only portfolio, even as it has modestly reduced risk. So what they're basically saying is in the last 10 years, the U.S. market has pretty much destroyed the rest of the world. But we have to understand is the last decade, from year 2000, 2010, the U.S. market was basically flat. So that would have been a bad time to only be in the U.S. market. That would have been a good time to be world diversified. All right, so continuing on, recent performance trends, even though diversifying into non-United States stocks makes intuitive sense and modestly reduce the standard deviation, so your risk tolerance a little bit, over the past 3, 5, and 10-year periods, doing so has often detracted from returns for US-based investors. In 8 of the 10 calendar years from 2014 through 2023, the Morningstar Global Market US Index was lagged the Morningstar US Market Index. So what's that saying in English? It's saying the US market in 8 of the last 10 years has done better than the world market if you just invested in the US market. So continuing on, I'm not going to go too much in depth there, but basically longer term trends, while non-United States stocks, especially those from developed markets, have exhibited a high correlation with the United States market in recent years, that has not always been the case. As shown below, correlations, you can't see this, but as shown below, correlations between the U.S. and the international markets have been lower in some previous periods, such as from 2004 through 2008. Remember the 2008 crash when our economy went, woo? It'll be a good time to have worldwide exposure. When the U.S. dollar was generally on the decline, if the greenback U.S. dollar goes into another longer term slump, or if the US sinks into recession, but other major non-US markets manage to avoid one, it is conceivable that correlations between the United States and international markets could again drift lower, and it would be valuable to have world exposure. So, portfolio implications. While investors who have diversified internationally haven't much benefited over the past decade, their portfolios have been slightly less volatile relative to the US only portfolio. The 10-year standard deviation of the Morningstar US Market Index is 15.5, whereas the standard deviation of the Morningstar Global Market Index, which includes both US and non-US names, is 15.0. So again, it's a little less risky or volatile if you're diversified worldwide rather than just owning US stocks. Continuing on. All right, that's kind of the main point of this article. Again, I don't want to go too much in the weeds, but hopefully you got the main points out of that. Where generally speaking, in the last 10 years, the US markets have beat the world market, but that doesn't always hold true historically the whole time, and it doesn't necessarily hold true moving forward. So if it's your intention to take advantage of the next emerging market or decrease your volatility within your portfolio, it may make sense to hold US and non-US equities, right? So any questions on that? I'd love to answer questions on those articles or any other retirement planning questions that anyone has. If I don't see any come in, I will start another article here. All right, so this information is how we sabotage ourselves in finance. All right, and this was an email that my business partner Ross Welty recently sent out. It says, what do you think it would take to make better or even perfect financial decisions? More information or more time? Even with that, you can also use less to do more with your money. And that means less bias when it's time to make key financial decisions. Our feelings, muddled memories, and even faulty reasoning can all nurture our biases. So can our fears and intuition. Still, with a little understanding of those biases, we can start to break free of them. That's the focus of this month's Visual Insights newsletter. So he sends out a newsletter kind of weekly or monthly, depending on how often pertinent information comes up and where you're signed up. But if you're interested in being a part of this newsletter, just let us know and we can absolutely add you to it. And that way you can read these very insightful articles without having to necessarily check in with me or Ross. You can have them sent directly to your inbox and read them at your convenience. So here's what it says. Inside the investor mind, bias, belief, and a better way to make financial decisions. We are emotional creatures. I think we can all agree with that. Everything we experience shapes our beliefs, behaviors, our reality. But if personal bias is how we favor or judge decisions, then those judgments can be exploited if incorrect. And during your next financial decision, they can unknowingly affect even the tiniest details. Though personal bias is natural, developing an awareness of these complex thought patterns is an excellent way to foster a more comprehensive view of our finances. The 5 biases listed below are some of the most common among us today and offer amazing insight into the psychology of investment behavior, what exactly derails us, and how can we avoid it. Does anyone have any opinions? Put them in the comments if you do. Here's the truth. Number 1, there's 5 behavioral biases that could misguide our money moves. Number 1, behavioral bias. Number 1 is loss aversion. Feeling the sting of a loss twice as intensely as the thrill of a win. That's loss aversion at play. And isn't it just like us to focus on the negative? Though this behavior is one of the many ways our brain works to protect us, it can ultimately cause habitual avoidance of risk and/or change. Here's an example. Refusing to sell and take a short-term loss, even though the market indicates there may be a better option available for a long-term win. Red flag, I'll hold for now. If you are rationalizing a decision to grasp onto a losing investment, you could be in the midst of a loss aversion bias. Behavioral, and the other thing with that, I think, is emotionally, is how we can have 10, 11, 20 wins. We always remember that one loss, right? That one that just kills us. Even though we might have a great winning percentage, for some reason that loss or that mistake we make just sticks with us. That's a loss aversion or a bias, right? So behavioral bias number 2, confirmation bias. This one is brutal, especially in social media. Confirmation bias happens when we fail to question ourselves to avoid being challenged. Knowing we're wrong is uncomfortable, and for some, unimaginable. So we seek familiar information that affirms what we already believe. Unfortunately, avoiding an exploration of opposing viewpoints to remain in our cocoon of perceived safety could keep us financially stagnant and out of touch. Example, when creating a personal monthly budget, you find it absolutely necessary to keep your current vehicle instead of researching other options that may be more affordable. You will only drive a enter car brand here because everyone in your family owns the same brand. It's the best, always has been, always will be. Red flag, I know I'm right because. That type of affirmative thinking causes you to double down on the confirmation bias. It has you justifying your choices instead of genuinely questioning them for a more balanced view. Behavioral bias number 3, herd mentality. This one's also extremely impactful. I find people far too often do what their neighbor, their cousin, their brother, or their parents did just because they did it. They don't really actually understand the why behind it. So, with that, confirmation bias, herd mentality. The herd mentality can push us to follow the pack and do what everyone else is doing. Instinctively, we can assume the herd knows best. So we jump on the bandwagon without thinking twice. Example, several of your industry acquaintances invest in a popular startup. So you rush to back it before researching their business model. Red flag. If I don't act now, I'll miss my chance. That fear of missing out, or FOMO, thinking can highlight that fear-driven quality of herd mentality. This fear can cause impulsive and anxious thoughts to act now to make sure we stay relevant, aren't left behind, and receive our slice of the pie. I see this massive with crypto. I think we can all reflect back to like 3 years ago. Bitcoin got huge, and I fell victim too, right? Bitcoin still may be valuable. I'm not arguing for or against Bitcoin or crypto as an individual. But how many other individual cryptocurrencies came out, like Dogecoin and ABC coin and whatever coin, that we're all like, oh, that one's going to get as big as Bitcoin did. I got to invest a bunch of money so I can get rich really quick, right? Doesn't mean it's actually going to work. Just because it worked for someone else or just because someone else did it doesn't mean you should too. You should always understand what's your plan, what are you trying to achieve, and why are we doing what we're doing, not just what's someone else doing. All right. Behavioral bias number 4, overconfidence. All right. Having got confidence in our own knowledge and abilities in the financial world and beyond is fantastic. Don't change a thing. You've earned it. The slippery slope of overconfidence occurs when self-assurance shapeshifts into a lack of respect for what we may not know, causing a misguided boldness and hastiness in our decisions. Example, you underestimate what it'll take to hit certain financial goals because of your successful track record and market savviness. You expect favorable outcomes without weighing all new possibilities and facts. Red flag, I've done this before. Financial decision-making experience, though important, can give us a false sense of control, thus a vulnerability to potential risks. Behavioral bias number 5, anchoring. The anchoring bias can cause us to put more weight or value into the first set of information we come across when we're making a decision. We anchor to that first piece of info, using it to evaluate current or future circumstances. This is like first impressions make a big deal, right? Far too often, whether it's human beings, stock market, financial planning, whatever, we hold so tightly onto our first impression, or we anchor, that we forget to keep learning or give someone a second chance. Right? Here's an example. A stock priced at $1,000 per share last week is now priced at $300 per share, making it seem cheaper or more affordable. If, however, you just priced the stock today and saw it at $300 per share without anchoring to that initial $1,000 per share price, it would not necessarily be a cheap or affordable. Red flag, it could be worse, so I should. That type of anchoring means we rely on a single set of data points, past or current, as a predictor of future results, leading us to overlook important evidence or trends that should also be considered. All right, logic can fly out the window when our biases and feelings replace facts. Here's a financial lesson: how to outsmart any bias to experience better money results. Have you ever experienced any of these biases firsthand? I would love to hear about it. Please comment in the chat. Or on the flip side, I'd love to know which of those 5 biases, and I'll put them in the chat quick, just as easy as a little review, you believe is the most common, maybe not for you, but just people you know, right? We don't have to talk about ourselves necessarily, but just generally, which bias do you think is the most common, and which one do you think is the most detrimental to retirement planning? I'd love to hear or see your guys' thoughts. So I'm just putting in the comments the 5 different types of bias, and then hopefully I'll get some responses, and then I will provide a little advice at the end here. And last but not least, there's the 5 biases. I'd love to see or see what you guys think is the most common and what's the most detrimental to financial planning. All right. So with that, while I'm reading here, how to outsmart any bias to experience better money results. How have you experienced any of these biases firsthand? Did any surprise you? Whether or not these biases feel familiar, the truth is we are not perfect, and we do not make perfect choices. Logic can fly out the window when our biases and feelings replace the facts, which can have us relying on faulty reasoning, muddled memories, or flawed intuition to make our major financial decisions. So consider this: instead of giving in, we adapt. And we can start simple by recognizing our biases and being more aware of how our emotions play into our financial choices. From there, we create a better framework for considering money moves and give ourselves a process that takes emotions out of the equation. We can also beef up our financial knowledge, making it easier to screen our biases. Routinely checking with people we trust for fresh perspective, a helpful sounding board, and a key checkpoint before making bigger financial moves. These steps can keep our eyes on the big picture, so we are making prudent choices to support our long-term goals. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. We are at 1:30. We've been on here for 30 minutes. Like I said, I'd love to answer questions if there are any. I'll stay on for another 30 minutes if anyone has questions, thoughts, comments, or wants to answer my question on which behavioral bias do you think. If I don't get any, I'll wrap it up here in about 30 seconds. And like I said, if you'd like to join our email list, I'm happy to add you to that as well. And that way, you can get these directly sent to you, and you can review our regular emails at your convenience. So, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? Going once. Hello. Thanks for checking in. Did you have any? I see someone said hello here. Do you have any questions or thoughts on this conversation, or any of the other comments I've made today, or anything else retirement planning related? I don't know exactly how to say your name. Samara? Yes, that is. Do we deal with a lot of retirement planning? No worries, I'm apologizing. Yes, that's primarily all we do. I know earlier in my career, I tried doing everything for everyone, and that's just not a great business model. Plus, it's really hard to be an expert if you try to do everything. So what we have done here at Five Stone Financial Group is we specialize in retirement planning pretty much only. I'd say 90 to 95% of all of our time is spent on learning, educating, and helping our clients with their retirement planning to hopefully help them have more confidence and joy in their financial futures. Thanks for the question. Is there anything specific follow-up on that? Otherwise, we can obviously do an offline conversation if you have specific questions, but I'm happy to answer them as well. And as far as how am I doing today, I'm doing great. It's been a great day so far. Thank you for asking. Was up early this morning and I am not going to send you a friend request. You can if you would like. But as far as retirement planning goes, I'm happy to answer all those questions. Are there any follow-ups on that? I'll give it a 5 more minutes here since I did have a couple questions come in. I'm actually making a poll while I wait for comments to eventually come in here. So I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on the behavioral bias side of things. Oh, I can only have 4 options. Yes, it is a lot to your handle on, and it's so. What I find when it comes to retirement planning is that, okay, so first of all, I got herd mentality as probably the most common. I appreciate that comment. Um, as far as the comment about you feel like it's a lot to get a handle on, and of course you're only 32. 2 things on that. One, congratulations for taking it seriously only at 32. It's really important. The earlier you do anything, especially financial planning related, just like your health, whether it's physical fitness or reading, whatever it might be, the easier it is later on. I'm a big believer in prevention is easier than fixing. It's a lot more cost effective. Also, the earlier you can do your retirement planning, the better, because of how compounding works with wealth. If you save for 30, 40 years, you're going to have a lot more money than if you just try saving for 10 years, even if you try saving 4 times more for 10 years. So you never want to push it off if you don't have to. But you should never feel bad. For most people, it's a really complex topic to handle on your own, which is why this is all I do all day, every day, is talk and think about this stuff. And I just had a meeting before I jumped on here with someone who's had a very successful career, owns multiple businesses, but the problem is they've got investment accounts over here, and insurance accounts over there, annuities over here, disability insurance over there. They got savings over here. They got some debts over there, and it's really confusing to figure out, A, what does my big picture financial plan actually look like? And B, how do I build a plan around it so it's all working together? Far too often, my industry does a great job selling products without actually having a plan in place to utilize all them cohesively. So what we're just working on is first and foremost getting organized around everything so that it works, so that everything's working together effectively and efficiently. The farming side of it is what makes it so complex. I feel like I should have had a financial education class. I agree. I completely agree. I wish that financial education was a larger part of our education system rather than like having to memorize no offense to geography, but memorizing the capital of like some country and like some place in another country that I may or may not ever visit, could probably Google, right? But financial literacy and financial education affects all of us. Literally, it does not matter how much money you make. It matters how much money you keep and how you use it. I have met with people who make $500,000 a year and live paycheck to paycheck simply because they just don't have the financial tools or education to use their money to their advantage the best they possibly can. So that is where, again, I'm biased. I'm a financial advisor, but I strongly encourage people to find, whether it's me or someone else, find someone you trust to help you get organized around this stuff. Just like it's so much easier to give advice to someone else than it is to take advice for yourself or like do your own advice, whether it's your health or sports or whatever. Just like every single golfer in the world that I'm aware of that's professional has a caddy and a swing coach. Just like every single professional team, even though every single hockey player, I'm a hockey guy, is better at playing hockey than their coach, they still have one because it takes that secondary voice or that logical coach to help you go through the tough times, get through the confusion, get through the anxiety or the confusion of the situation to get to the best end result that you can get. Are there going to be mistakes along the way? Of course. None of us are perfect. But financial planning is really complex and life happens, right? We cannot, with perfect certainty, plan what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in 10 years, or what's going to happen in retirement, or what's going to happen on a farm or with your business. However, we can understand what our best options are and build a plan that perfectly attains to you. Not perfectly, but the best possible, right? So that's, I don't know if that was helpful as far as you didn't really necessarily ask for my advice, but that's the biggest thing I strongly encourage people is the sooner the better. Find someone you trust or a team of people that you trust. It might be a CPA and a financial advisor and a lawyer, depending on how complex the business situation is. But get a team of people around you that you can trust to give you just direct and honest advice on what you can and should be doing so that you can enjoy living your life. Oftentimes, some of our most successful clients may be smarter than us, but they want to spend their whole day running their business and spending time with their family, not doing those two things and then going home having to stress about finances. So they can offload that on someone like us. This is all we do, right? So I don't want to be my own dentist. I don't want to be my own tax person. I don't want to do that stuff. That's why I offload it, right? When something goes wrong at my house, I hire a carpenter or a plumber. I don't need to do everything myself. That's why I think it's important to specialize in what we are passionate about and then delegate the rest. So hopefully that's helpful. And thank you again for the answer to the bias question. Any other questions or thoughts on that? I would love to answer more. Also, if you can see behind me, I'm a big fan of quotes, and the top one here. So the funny thing about financial planning is the most successful investment accounts are owned by dead people. I love that. I heard it somewhere. I heard it in a growth conference I was at attending last week, and I completely agree. And the reason why is because dead people don't have emotions. They leave their accounts alone, no matter what is happening in the market. Far too often, people overreact to short-term events when it comes to their long-term plans. All right. So that's a big part of the work we do. It's not like picking the perfect stock. It's building a long-term plan and helping people stick with it and understanding the long-term effects of it.